Is it true you were the model for a Hasbro game? Mystery.
Highlights. Yep. That was. Yeah, it was one of those mystery, like the mystery date games. Like you call on the, I got Tyler. I think my character name was Tyler, actually. I was a surfer or something. Yeah.
Yes, those are the kind of jobs you have to take early on, huh?
I was thrilled about it at the time.
Oh, I've been meaning to ask. How's your father, Andy?
What'd you say?
I asked about your father. How's he doing? I mean, I knew criminal law was a passion of yours, but I had no idea it was the family business.
Whoa! You think this is a joke?
Hey,
do you?
Come on, Andy. Back up.
Jesus.
Don't lecture me about concealing things.
Just let it go. Hey.
I will say this. It explains a lot, Andy, about you, about your son.
I want to start with Defending Jacob because I still am shaking from that show. I got
good. That's by design.
I got to binge that series sort of before it went on the air. I saw all of it, and we just couldn't stop, my wife and I. I mean, we just had to keep watching. It really is like an 8-hour movie. It seems not like a television miniseries or limited series to me. And I guess it was actually intended that way originally. They were thinking about making it as a movie. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, a movie like this, I mean, these types of movies are very much up my alley. And 20 years ago, this would have been a movie. It would have been all engine. It would have been all plot, and it would have been, very entertaining. But there might not have been as much opportunity to let it breathe a little bit, and then let there, be some layers and depth behind the moments.
Yeah. What about this one? When it came to you, you're also an executive producer on it too.
Yeah.
So you're working behind the scenes as well to make sure it turns out well. But what about this? Because you've been doing movie after movie and big screen and stuff, and this is a rare foray into television.
Sure. In my eyes, I feel like even that 20 years ago, the lines between the two mediums may have been a bit more clearly drawn. These days, I think there's a lot of really wonderful risk taking and unbelievable storytelling happening in the TV world now that streaming is ubiquitous as well. And really, it was just about meeting with Mark and Morton, and you take a little bit of a leap of faith. They only show you the pilot, so you don't know where it's going to go. But eventually, you just kind of say, I want to work with these people. And it was such a wonderful experience. They're really collaborative, wonderful people.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're working in Boston, where you're from. Yeah. So that's not a big stretch in the location.
No, and that was a real luxury. I got to sleep in my own bed. I mean, I was seeing my family on the weekends. It was great.
Yeah. What was it about playing Andy, the assistant DA you play here? It's a very complex character. I don't think I've quite seen you do one like it. We were talking just before we went on about a movie that I really loved that you did called Puncture.
Yeah.
And you played a lawyer in that.
That's right.
An addicted, a drug-addicted lawyer. So that was a very complex jump into law in a different way, as is this too, because all of a sudden you're playing a father whose son is accused of murder, and you have to deal with that on so many levels.
That's right. Yeah, actually, oddly enough, those two characters from Puncture and this both are kind of struggling with guilt, in my opinion. That was one of the most appealing elements of Defending Jacob, where you have a guy, I don't want to give too much away, but he has a history, and it has some skeletons in his closet, and I think a lot of people who have trauma in their past tend to bury it and really don't try to address it. But that guilt you may feel as a result of whatever the circumstance was, it never really goes away. It echoes and it manifests in a lot of tricky ways, and Andy gets thrust in this circumstance where all of a sudden all of that guilt and shame is exhumed very publicly. And I just thought that was such a great story to examine, that perspective on what would normally be a CSI episode.
Does this whet your appetite to do more television if you can find this kind of material there? That
Absolutely. I think that, there's something really, I was always, Look, I love the movie structure. I like the idea of having to tell a story and wrap it up in a finite amount of time. But after doing this, you know, we consume this type of medium almost the way we consume literature. You know, you process it in chapters, and it stays with you in between sittings. And the really good books, you know, you can't wait to get back into it. And then, you know, within one page, you're back in the world. And that return to the experience and that return to the characters and the downtime to examine is a really unique way to kind of consume this medium. So absolutely, I actually really enjoyed doing it, and I'll definitely be looking for them in the future.
Yeah, obviously, you know, in your film career, you started, I guess, with Fantastic Four. Actually, you started in that whole Marvel universe and doing that. And you actually resisted going in, I guess, and doing Captain America, which was actually would have been a terrible decision on your part.
We wouldn't be having this discussion with you right now. You know what I mean? It really would have been an unfortunate choice. Yeah.
It was such a unique thing. I actually remember interviewing the Russo brothers. They said they want to do an interview with me because they want to know why a movie like that doesn't get nominated for Best Picture, why the industry doesn't appreciate it in that way. And I said, well, if they'll say that, great, let's do that interview. And we did. And, you know, and you look at a picture like Winter Soldier, and you see that place on so many levels and different ways, and not just as a superhero movie and all of that. And they had a point. You know, there is real substance to these movies.
Absolutely. There's enormous thought and consideration that goes into these story arcs. And, you know, if you take the Marvel moniker off those movies and characters that aren't identifiable from comic books, these movies would be lauded in that way. And, you know, I'm not saying everyone's a home run, but they really sometimes turn out some really, really impressive movies.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I mentioned Knives Out. I keep mentioning these movies that I can't talk about plot-wise in case because your character is so integral to where they go.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that looked like so much fun to do that kind of big Agatha Christie style murder mystery.
Oh yeah, I mean those are some of my favorite types of movies, and really just to work with such a fastidious director like Rian Johnson, it's so comforting. You know, because the movie, some of the actors take big swings, you know, myself included, and you know, when you're doing that, it's easy to kind of devolve into a posture of being defensive and protective because you just want to make sure, you know, you're all cooking the same meal. But with Ryan, he knows exactly what he wants. His North Star is so true. That's when you can start to untether a little bit and trust the experience and just have fun and know that Ryan is going to keep everything within the lines.
And you're a director too, because you know, and that's a direction I think you want to go in, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the most unique connections I've experienced in any sort of creative capacity, the director-actor connection, because you're dealing with intangibles. You know, if you just kind of have a discussion about a role, you could very easily get in the semantic fog where a director could say what he's looking for, but it just might not resonate with you the right way. And, you know, again, like I said, we're not dealing with anything concrete here. And if you're not making the same movie, things can spiral. And so having that bond with a director where you eventually develop a shorthand and you understand what they're looking for and they know how to communicate to you what they see, that's when you start to really have fun. And the anxiety, the dizziness of the choice as an actor, you know, the choices you have every minute of the day become a little less overwhelming and distracting, and you can zero in and just really get excited about making the same piece of material.